Let's say you roll into a shop right now and you're presented with the option of the same strain, but do you want the big bud or the small bud version of it? And which one do you think is better? Because I used to be all about big buds. I would only get the big buds because I thought they were better. The big buds are the buds that are usually on the top of the plant, the higher up ones, and the smaller buds were the ones a little bit below the canopy that maybe didn't get as much light. However, some genetics, some strains produce all small buds. You're not getting big colas or big nugs at the top. It's just small buds all around. I think Girl Scout cookies is a great example of that, if you've ever seen it grown. Well, here in Florida, most dispensaries that you go to, you can get the small and the large version of a strain typically. They'll have their regular weed jarred out, but then they'll have discount or cheaper weed called smalls or minis or popcorn buds or something else. Got a little pet name for their smaller buds. And yeah, sometimes they are cheaper, but they're not always worse in quality. They're not always the worst option. I was in the dispensary just the other day. They had Ghost Train Haze. It's about 18, 19%. But then they had the mini version of it or the small bud version of it. It was like 25%. And they both had, I think, the same harvest date on it. So they could have came from the same plant or the same grow. But the small buds had a much higher THC in it. And that's something I've noticed for a long time, is the smaller buds have more trichomes on them. They have more cannabinoids. There's a higher concentration of trichomes on a lot of smaller buds. If you bust open a giant nug, it's not chock full of trichomes in the middle. You're seeing a lot of that on the outside. Some of the big buds, though, they'll have a really high concentration of trichomes on the very tip. The ones that were closer to the light, you see a ton of trichomes there. But on a plant that grew smaller buds, the ones at the top just get so frosty. So in my experience, I've noticed that smaller buds can be more potent. They can be frostier at a cheaper price. You're getting more cannabinoids overall, not just THC, but in some cases, you're just getting more cannabinoids and less plant material. And if you've ever broken open a big bud, you know that there's big old stems in there. I've had massive buds before. By the time you bust it open, you're like, there's a stem in there the size of my fucking pinky, bro. How much stem weight is that? I did one time buy like the top cola from a dispo. It's like a giant 23 gram just cola with a bunch of buds on it. And by the time I broke everything off, I had a big old like 3-gram stem in there, you know? So sometimes on those bigger buds, you're just getting way more stem weight. You're not really going to smoke the stem. So if you're buying an ounce of big buds and you're getting nice big buds, and you buy an ounce of small buds, you're going to have more smokable flower in the small buds. You're going to have less stems, more smokable flower, and you might even have more THC, more cannabinoids, more of the good stuff. That's what they use when they do extractions. Smaller buds can yield higher. They don't sell as quickly in the dispensary because people do like big buds. People will walk into the dispensary and say, I only want big buds. Don't sell me that small shit. It happens. I've worked in dispos. And for some people, it's got to be big. They're size queens. They got to have the biggest buds. Now, one other thing I do want to talk about with the size is larger buds are harder to cure and dry. You're more likely to have mold in a bigger bud. It's just more common. I've heard growers say they don't want their buds to get too big because they know they're going to definitely get moldy. I've had my experience with moldy buds. One of my first grows in Colorado, the top cola on one of my plants was like a little Nerf football. It was so stoked at how big it was. And then when I finally get in to trim it after drying it, it was just full of mold. It was just way too big. There was just no reasonable way for that moisture to sweat out. So big buds can be harder to manage from a grower's perspective. You can have issues with mold or issues with drying it properly, comparing it to smaller buds. I've just heard plenty of people say they have an easier time working with the smaller buds. Although as a grower, you want to see the bigger buds. They're really nice. So you're getting more stem in a bigger bud. You might have a higher chance of mold. But those are the ones you're going to want to take pictures of. That's the one that's going on your Instagram. Nobody's taking pictures of their popcorn buds and showing them off to their friends. Nah, bro, look at this massive nug I got. So I don't always buy the small buds when I'm out shopping, but I don't ignore them. I don't avoid them. Some people just assume they're lower quality because they're cheaper. And they're like, oh, no, I don't want that fucking shit. But you might get better weed. It might be a few dollars cheaper. You might get more smokable flower, and you might get more cannabinoids overall. So definitely don't shy away from the small buds or the minis or the popcorn buds. They can be from the same batch as the other plants or the other flower you're looking at. And they can be just as good or maybe even a little bit better. I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to check out my Twitch stream. It's hard to do this 420 friendly content, but Twitch is one of the best places to do it. There's a ton of people that have been popping in my streams lately that have never used Twitch before. They're like, oh my God, I've been missing out. This is so lit. So definitely come smoke with me on Twitch. And if you link your Amazon Prime account, you can save $5 on a subscription over there and support me for free. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram. That's Cewpins420 on IG. And if you want to learn the best way to hide the smell of your bud, whether you got the big ones or small ones, you're trying to hide the smell, check out this video. I go over over some tips on how to mask the smell so you're not stinking up the whole place. Peace out. I hope you have a lit day, my dudes.